Hello students, welcome to my channel. Uh, Today in this chapter, we will be taking the revision for your half yearly examination. So I'm starting the chapter 3 onwards, and here we will be discussing about the rural life in a society. So in this chapter, especially we will be talking about that how this business classes people, especially like this Europeans or Britishers, how they have actually in the form of business and traders, how they have changed their mentality after having arrived and seeing the resources and the freeness, every bit of things they took the advantage of that. So we will be talking about how these Britishers, being a company, being a corporators, how they have actually made the people like our Indian as a slave after their arrival. So let us talk about now, especially here, the chapter is speaking about the rural life in a society. So this rural life in a society, when we talk about, especially the Britishers actually occupied or they established their colonial rule in the urban, in the city area, and then gradually when they started focusing on the tax and different revenues and then collected, then they thought of again to enter to the deeper into the country like India, and then they started entering to the village areas, especially in the urban setup. The Britishers were actually most of the like a business and their buying and selling activities were done already, but besides that they were also became the kind of like a zamindars, or maybe like a divani rights they got. And this divani rights in fact actually made the most of the city and urban areas more and more like aggressive towards the Britishers, because more than the expected, this Britishers actually collected the revenues from the people. And okay, now in this chapter, we will be having that how this revenue system under the British rule actually kind of like ruined the life of the people, especially in the village setup. So today, especially in this revision chapter, I'll be talking about that the villagers. In fact, they had the very simple life, and during this rule of the Mughals, in fact, nobody felt much pressure on the taxation, giving the taxes. But the moment the Britishers took control and then started making the people to suffer due to their revenue collection, then people started realizing the painfulness and their sufferings. So uh, up to date, the Britishers in fact entered to the village area, especially in the rural areas, and then started occupying the different areas through the different people. Once the Britishers have taken the Diwani rights, uh, from that time onwards, most of the time they thought that they are the Nababs, and they behave like Nababs and all. And how they have taken the Diwani rights, some of the images are given in the pictures. So you can see there are some of the pictures actually depicted through some painters. And then of course at the time there was no camera, so they used to paint, and then they used to show that they are the once upon a time, it means they are very much like influenced in this country, such kind of like a big like a the rumors they want to create. So that is the thing they did actually. So here we will be talking about how these villagers, peasants especially, uh, felt and then suffered due to their presence, due to their atrocities, and many people, in fact, after that, started rebel against the Britishers. So let us talk here the revenue system under the British rule. Revenue system under the British rule, you can understand that they actually implemented or they applied three categories of the revenue policy on people, and then these are the basically like this begins. So first is a permanent settlement, or which is known as the jamindari system. Second one is a raituri system, and then a third one is a mahalwari system. So these three categories of the revenue policy, in fact, they applied on this country, India especially, and they applied this policy especially on the pigeons and farmers and artisans and craftsmen, like that, those who were doing the small activities. So here, let us talk about now the permanent settlement. Now here, the permanent settlement was actually introduced by a person called Lord Cornwallis. That is actually started in Bengal, and Bengal was a huge territories which was actually occupied by the colonial rule, and this particular area, once it is covered, means it was a big business centers, in fact, Bengal, because here you can understand that Orissa, Jharkhand or Bihar, then Bengal, these are the huge areas. And at the time it was considered like the like a big business center, and every bit of foreign people or Middle East or China, this is the area actually the people are actually doing the business trade and all. And so Britishers actually tried to occupy this area, and then after having occupied, they entered to the even in the remote areas of the this Bengal and all. And in this Bengal, when they entered, they applied this permanent settlement. Permanent settlement, one of the revenue policy. And here, under this revenue system, the zamindars were actually given the hereditary ownerships. Hereditary ownership means they will be given the responsibility to collect the revenues from the pigeons and will and submit to the this Britishers. And the revenue, in fact, how much actually was charged to these pigeons. It means as much as possible the zamindars will take control. Now Britishers realized that they want to see whether if they directly, if they take the control on these people, then there will be a reaction, because you have to understand that Britishers were at the time very few of them. Very few, means a few thousands came in India, and then they as a business and traders and rulers, they started behaving themselves like that under their means under them, of course, the British also a army troop also was there. So to maintain this army troops and all, they started occupying, they started creating the subsidiary alliance. So such kind of policy they applied. It means the ruler will be ruled, but then the money matter will be handled by the Britishers. So they were very cunningly, very shrewdly, they utilized their brain, and then they started what called draining the wealth from India. So therefore, you can understand that here the Britishers actually study the matter. If directly they can collect the revenue, there will be a problem, and then when the big crowd will be against them, then certainly the big crowd will not listen to with this a few handful people. So they took the a kind of like a chance. They gave the chance to the those who are the nababs and those who are respected people of that area, and then through them they started collecting. So it means whatever the people were given the responsibility to collect this zamindari system or the permanent settlement, this policy tax, then here the zamindars actually were given around 11% of the the share from this 100%, and then 89% of the share will be given to the, or the tax will be given to the Britishers by hook and crook. So here, if the zamindars are unable to pay, then from their pocket, from them, they have to pay to the Britishers. So that is the condition actually put forward by the Britishers to the different zamindars, nababs and all here. So during this time, many other like incidents happen, especially here the the tax, when it was collected, most of the pigeons were actually after having paid quite several times this the tax and all, and this tax was actually for the 10 years. It means a fixed period of 10 years, and maybe first year, second year, the pigeons were actually able to pay. But as the atrocities of the zamindars became more and more, and the people, the farmers, especially those who had the somehow running the family, those farmers actually started finding difficult to pay the tax. And as a result of, the zamindars started taking the step of punishing them, beating them. Some people were there whom they were called lathials. Lathial means people who with the sticks under the zamindar. So these people were walking, and whenever the zamindars actually needs the this tax, then these lathials will go, and then they will beat the person, and then carry the every bit of things that is actually that person's belong to. So that way the different people were actually started suffering under this policy. And here the zamindars were in fact sometimes took the even advantage, and as a result of that the zamindars became the very very rich at this time, because more than that the zamindars actually started what called exploiting this peasants. Here some of the areas where the cultivation is not done, then even those lands also they actually took, and then most of the land where actually came under the these zamindars, and these zamindars became the very very rich at this point. So today you can see there are many of the zamindars. Okay, so here you can see this is the atrocities actually put forward to the peasants, and here the permanent settlements turned out to be the most fruitful for the zamindars. In fact, I mentioned, and the hereditary ownership of the land helped them emerge as a new wealthy and a powerful class of landlords. So the increased revenue generated from the increase in the cultivable land went into the hands of the zamindars, thereby making them wealthier. So you can understand that most of the peasants and farmers which land was belong to them was taken by the zamindars, and those lands, especially more and more cultivation was done, those lands were also taken by the zamindars. And thousand, hundred acres of lands were actually taken by the different these zamindars, and they became the more wealthier. So this is a system actually made the very miserable condition in this time. So here you can see the system made the living conditions worse for the cultivators, and they were actually often subjected to oppressive methods of revenue collection. And for example, they were evicted from their own lands by the zamindars on grounds of non-payment of dues, and thus converted into tenants. So how these people actually became the tenants because of they are unable to pay the tax. So that is the first system we have in this chapter. So second one is the policy which was applied, especially the revenue policy, which is known as the Rythry system. Now this Rythry system in fact was actually introduced by the person called Sir Thomas Munro between this 1820 to 1827, and here this policy was in fact applied especially in the Madras presidency. Okay, and here the word Rythry means like a peasants. Okay, and under this Rythry system, the peasants were actually the owners of the land, and the British government actually directly collected taxes from them. It means in this policy you won't find the zamindars. Actually here the zamindars actually remain as a middleman, and in this case, especially Rythry system, the farmers actually directly they have to give the tax to the Britishers, and that's why you can see that there are most of the farmers even had a big suffering. Here the middlemen, of course, especially like the zamindars were absent, and as a result of it became the same, because there the 11% was taken by the zamindars, but here the whole 11 and every whatever the taxation was actually imposed on them, every bit of things was actually handed over to the Britishers. And here you can find that most of the zamindars suffered the same in fact. So here remove the middleman, that is we have seen already. Now the system actually aggravated the conditions of the peasants even here, and the percentage of the tax levied on them was actually usually very high without subject to any exemption. Even during a natural calamity, the Britishers in fact didn't excuse them, and rather they collected them as much as possible. It means you have to understand that the company is setting not for the losing, not for the loss. So every bit of business that actually begins or began at the time, they don't want to be lost, because they were lost. They were actually, why they were this much harshness, this much things were doing, because under them there were many of the troops, armies were there, and to pay them this salary and all. This Britishers actually started more and more applying the different policies by the different alliance group, and then things started extracting the money and all to pay the army the salary and all. So these are the things happen. Now you can see that if the peasants fail to pay their taxes on time, their land was actually sold off. So here is another atrocities was actually imposed. If they are unable to pay, then their land was actually sold off, and then the fear of the losing land actually forced the peasants to take loans from money lenders, and even the money lenders actually charge them very high interest, and on loan, and seize the land of the peasants if they fail to repay their loans on time. So you can understand that it almost same. When you are taking the loan and unable to pay, then certainly the person who has given you money, he will come and then he will take away your belongings. So that is actually happened. So these two systems actually ruined the people, especially in India. And however, the Britishers were not that much careful about the pigeons. Many of the families, perhaps at home, they have the grain or not for surviving, whether they have got shelter or not to surviving, whether these people are actually sick or not. These kind of things, no information taken by the Britishers, but they were only crazy behind the money, 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 and that is actually the things happen in India, and ruin the people, and especially the peasants, especially cultivators. Really, they suffered a lot due to that. So anyway, these are the few things which we are actually coming to know. In my next video, I will talking about the Mahalwar systems, and also we will talk about the commercialization of the agricultures, then Indigo Rebellion. Then there are some of the studies like a case study about the Punjab, we will talk about. Okay, so for this chapter, I just would like to ask you to read through, and you get the fill in the blanks, true, false, then I match the following. These are the few questions you read through, and I make sure to read the chapters better, so that at any moment, suppose any kind of a short note may come, then you can able to write your notes. Okay.